Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. First thing is first, if you wouldn't mind giving me a like and a subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. And whilst you're there, remember to let me know how you're doing out of 10, because for me this week, I think that I'm going to be about a 9 out of 10. It's been a pretty good week. It's been super full on. We've got loads done and it's so far gone really well. Now, low of the week is that I'm not going to complain about the weather because it is glorious. But we are starting to struggle for grass a little bit. Could do with a bit of rain, but we always say when it's raining, we're always like, why can't it be like Spain and be hot and sunny? And now it's got hot and sunny. We're like, why can't it be rainy like it normally is? So I'm not going to complain about it, but we could do with a little bit. However, I do like the sun, so, you know, swings and roundabouts. High of the week, however, is that we've got the wheat harvest in the shed. It's safe for another year. And you know what? It was really good. But I'm going to show you a bit more of that on this week's video. So buckle up and let's go and have a look. Oh, while I think about it, I've had loads of messages from people asking me about my wedding ring, and they're saying like, oh, you could get it caught, health and safety, you could lose your finger, whatever else, and I completely agree with you. However, that is why this wedding ring is not my proper wedding ring. This one is a silicone wedding ring, so it's just a silicone band. It's flexible, it bends, it rips. If you get it caught, it will just snap. So I can keep my finger, not deglove it, which is horrible if you ever see that. Oh, don't even want to think about it. Yeah, it's really good. So if you're like a manual worker or a farmer and you want to have the sort of symbolic gesture of having a wedding ring, which is what I wanted it for, you can get these silicone ones now, and then you just take that off and put your proper one on when you go out and have a nice meal or go on holiday or whatever else. So yeah, that's what it is. Don't worry about it, guys. If I get it caught, it'll snap. I get to keep my finger. And whilst I'm on the subject of weddings, I would just like to say a massive thank you to everybody for all of your support and messages and kind well wishes and everything else that you've given to Kate and I over the last week or two. Really means so much to us all. I've got so many comments to catch up on, and I will do it as soon as I get a chance. I really appreciate it. Thank you, all of you. We can get on with the video now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are in the weeds, and what a day to be at it. To be quite honest, we couldn't ask for a better day. The sun is shining, the corn is dry, there's a bit of a brisk and cold wind, which is quite nice because it means we haven't got to cool this down too much. Awesome. We're in the wheat. Can't complain. Now we're only on the headlands here. As you can see, I've just done one width on the outside, which is always your poorer width. But this is a really good crop. This is KWS X Days, which is a Group 2 milling wheat, and it is looking awesome. This is probably our best field of wheat. I did one last night that was not as good as this. It was on a bit lighter land and it burnt up a little bit, but it still did not quite 4 tons, so can't complain about that. This one, however, I've got high hopes for. I think we could get up towards 5 ton on this. One thing I will say about this crop this year is it is incredibly tall. I don't think you can see Dad just there. He's just got a couple of bit of ragwort that he's got to rogue out, but it's about up to his waist. I know X Days is a bit taller and it is really good at standing, but there's a lot of straw going to be coming off this. Look at this for a unit. This is a digestate spreader, been on next door. What a machine. Woo, that's a big one. Thought I'd just show you the sample I have just unloaded. And that looks pretty good, super clean. Get a bit out of here. Happy days. Really big, really bold. Will make good flour or whatever they want to make out of it. Now I thought I'd just stop a minute and show you something, because I've got a knife section that's broken. I need to fix it. But I just want to point something out in this field, because where we are right now was a AB9 game cover as part of our mid-tier stewardship, and it's pretty good. It's yielding well, not much different to the rest of the field. But this part of the ground has had sort of less care, I would say, over the last 3 or 4 years. And this is slightly more cracked up. Down that bottom corner over there, there was 3 acres of grass lay. And it was down for 2 years because we wanted to get this field whole back straight, all as one field of wheat. And it went out up towards that tree there in a strip. And when you get down there, that is probably yielding around about, I'd say just over 3 ton compared to the rest of it. So that's going to drag this field back a little bit on its averages. But in the middle, in the main part of it, it's actually really good and really thick. So really impressed with it. And I think a lot of it is down to the drill. Now, what I mean when I say it's down to the drill is that we are holding so much more moisture in the ground right now. So where I'm stood is the game cover pit. So you can see there's some cracks down here on the floor, and there's a couple along the tram lines. But if you get a bit further in there, where it wasn't on the game cover, and it's been direct drilled for three seasons, something like that, there is no cracks whatsoever. It's really good, and that's because we're holding the moisture in the soil, and that's probably why this crop looks so well, even though it's been so dry, because it's been the driest April to August since 1976. Now, if you've never heard of 1976 summer, ask your dads and granddads, because they love to tell everybody how hot and dry it was. But obviously things back then were different. Everyone was ploughing, we were doing a lot more cultivation, so the ground dried out. But now, because we're direct drilling, we're holding that moisture, and it's just giving us good crops, and it's making us a lot more resilient as farmers. The other thing I think that lack of cracking indicates is that we're just getting a better soil health across the whole farm, because it's obviously retaining more moisture, and it can only retain more moisture if there's more organic matter, and there can only be more organic matter if we are putting it in the soil. So we had put muck on this prior to drilling it, but I think all of those things with the direct drilling, non-inversion tillage, all of that culminated together, I think is having a massive effect, and it's starting to show, because we've had some really crappy growing weather over the last couple of years. We've had a really dry spring this year, we've had a dry spring, well, really for the last 3 years. We had a couple of wet autumns, and I think it's all just starting to pay off. So yeah, hopefully it continues in the same vein. The other thing I like to point out as well is that, yeah, that cracking, it is good for us as farmers not to have that in the field. However, it's also quite good for the wildlife, because you don't get the chicks falling down cracks and things like that. Because I've seen some terrible cracks this year on people's pictures on Twitter and Instagram and whatever else, because they're on clay soils like we are, and it's just cracked up with it being so dry, and the fact that they often do deep tillage with subsoilers and so on. So it's drying really deep down into the soil, whereas obviously we're retaining that moisture, which is really good. Now we're just coming up to the bit where it was grass, so you can see the line there. You can literally see a line across the field where the grass started and the oats finished. And that part there is what's not quite so heavy. And the reason for that is because when you have grass, the root depth on ryegrass is only very shallow, inch or two, and it sucks all the moisture out of the topsoil. Once it sucks that moisture out, it takes a lot of getting back in there. And considering we've had such a dry year, it hasn't quite got back to its normal self. Now, that field over the hedge there was after ryegrass as well, and we actually drilled that with the McCormick that we had when I did my McCormick review back in October time, so go check that out if you haven't done so already. We applied muck to that, but again, it's going to suffer from the fact there's a lack of moisture in that topsoil, and we didn't get it over the winter, we didn't get it in the spring, so it's not really been replenished. So it'd be interesting to get in there and have a look. That one also had a bit of grass weeds from the ryegrass that we had to spray out in the spring. Now luckily we did knock it out pretty well, but yeah, it would have affected the yield, so it'd be interesting to get in there. I think that one's probably our worst crop of wheat. The cavalry are all out in floors now. Dad's corn carting and Mum's on the baler. She's bailed up what we did last night, and she's in here chasing after me now. And that's it. All the wheat is done. What weather for it. It's gorgeous. Even that field over the hedge there that was after the grass that I didn't think would do that well. I thought it'd be about 3 tonne. Even that did 4 tonne. The only difference really between that and everything else was that it was about 6 inches shorter. Other than that, it still yielded really well. Now, if I climb back up the steps, you can see I've just finished combining that one there. That one is done over 4 tonne, probably about 4.2. This one, which is the one I thought would be really good, as a conservative estimate, would be 4.5. And to be honest, I think he's done way more than that. It's been unbelievable, like just consistent yields. It's been the first year for like forever that I've ever known us have just consistently good yields across all of the farm, across all the wheats and everything. There's normally something that's disappointing, but they've been really good. And the other thing is we've had better yields than sort of 4.5 tonne, 5 tonne. In the past, I've had a field that's done nearly 6, but that was an outlier, just a freak field, and everything else was pretty average. But this year they've just all been really good, and considering the challenges, I would love to have seen them in a normal year when they've had some rain, because they'd have been mind-blowing. So I'm going to take the header off now, go back to the yard, and then we're going to check on the grain store, because it was looking pretty full this morning, and we've stuck a fair bit more in there since then. So let's go and have a look. Something else I'm just going to point out, Dad has gone and disced a fire break around these fields, just along here, and you see where that car is, that's a road. It's quite busy along there, and we're worried that someone's just going to flick a cigarette butt over the hedge and he's going to land in his field, because people do that kind of thing without thinking. So he's gone and really disced along here and along there to make sure that nobody inadvertently sets the whole field on fire. Right, so here's the shed. Pretty full. That was the last load, just been tipped. We have had it right to the door before, but that year we probably had like 110, 120 acres, something like that. This year we've only had about 65 acres, and then when you take out the margins and things, probably about 60 acres. And we've got that much. So couldn't really be much happier. That is awesome. Absolutely awesome. Looking forward to getting it tested now, see what the protein's like, because obviously with it being a milling wheat, if the protein's right, last year we got it to somewhere, it was like Stoke way. It went for flour. So if we can get the milling right, that'd be a nice little premium on there as well. Now, if you're interested in what those fields had as they grew, they had a herbicide pre-emergence when they were first drilled, just to tackle any grass weeds. They then had about 170 kilos of nitrogen over the spring. First dose of that being a sulfur-based nitrogen as well, to get a bit of sulfur in there. One fungicide at sort of a T2.5. It wasn't really a T3, it wasn't a T2, it was kind of halfway between them. Bit of a like half ear wash, half flag leaf spray. And they had no other herbicides apart from the grass one that had an extra grass-based herbicide, I think it was Broadway Star, in the spring, just because it got a bit more grass weeds in there, and the rest of them were all clean, so we didn't bother doing them. So they've had really low inputs across the board, to be quite honest, and that's what we ended up with. So proper happy. And that is it for another video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please give me a like and a subscribe, and let me know how you're doing out of 10. Now, whatever you're up to this weekend, have a great one, because the weather is going to be scorching hot. It's going to be awesome. But be careful, because if you're taking a barbecue anywhere or anything like that, just don't. Everywhere's way too dry in the UK. You'll cause a fire. We don't need that. No one needs a fire to deal with. Whatever you're up to, have a great one. See you all next week. Bye.